every evening, starting the 1st of December, at 5 o'clock, someone will ring a bell here in front of the Gundy house. They'll gather a large crowd of people, and at 5:30, a youngster will be picked to come up and knock on this door. And someone from the Downtown Bethlehem Business Association will open up the door, and the crowd will be given a special surprise.
Oh.
It might be candy or something good to eat. It might be an adult beverage. It might be a gift. It might be entertainment. It's something different every night at 5:30 from December 1st to December 23rd. It's called a live Advent door. It's one of the only live Advent doors in the country. We have it here in Bethlehem every night, December 1st to December 23rd. The Hallmark Channel live streams with a camera a couple of cities in the country that are related to Christmas. And Bethlehem's being the Christmas city, there's a camera up there that's streaming everything going on this street from 10 o'clock in the morning to 10 o'clock at night every day during the Christmas season. So you are on the Hallmark Channel right now, so behave yourselves.
Okay.
In December of 1740, the Moravian brethren are in Nazareth. Now, they have been kicked off the property. They're already negotiated the sale of this land right here. There's no one living here. This is just forest. But they know they have to have a building to move into because they have to leave Nazareth when the spring snow melt starts. So they come down here in December 1740, and in knee-deep snow, they start cutting down white oak trees, which was the predominant tree here, and they build a 20-foot by 40-foot dovetailed white oak cabin, which stood right here where the Hotel Bethlehem is. March the 9th, 1741, the original 14 settlers of the town of Bethlehem, 10 men, 2 boys, and 2 women, moved into that cabin, and they shared the building with their cattle and their sheep, all living underneath the same roof. Zinzendorf picked out 15 men to build this building in 1741. These are hand-hewn white oak logs. You cut them down, no power tools. You gotta haul them up 5 stories. You stuff natural materials like leaves between the cracks, the insulation. Then you cover the cracks with a mixture of lime, clay, and sand. This is a recreation of the 1761 smithy shop that was here. By 1763, there was 5 different smithies working out of the smithy shop. A blacksmith, a locksmith, a tinsmith, a nailsmith, and a gunsmith, all working out of this building. It was the largest place of worship in the whole country, United States, in 1806, that didn't have any columns in the worship center. So it's quite an architectural feat for the little town of Bethlehem here. And now holds about 1,250 people. There's a 3,057 pipe Moeller organ in this end of the building in the choir loft. This is a federal style building, a modern building in the United States when it's finished in 1806. So the brethren did a lot of missionary work. They sent missions out all over the country here, preached to African Americans and Native Americans, because it was much easier to convert someone who was ignorant of God than it was to convert a Catholic.
Yeah.
That's true.
This was rooms for meeting, for work, for practice music. This room, when the Single Brothers Choir building from 1744 to 1748, this is where the Musicum Collegium practiced, the first organized orchestra in the United States. Down here in Bethlehem in 1744, they practiced in this room an hour a day. Benjamin Franklin, very important person in American history, came here to Bethlehem in 1755, and they performed a concert for him. The brethren love music. They use music as part of their worship services to praise the Lord. They're very talented instrument makers, so a lot of the musical instruments you see here were made by Moravian brethren here in Bethlehem. The trombone choir came here from Germany in 1754. sick men were placed outside the building. You had 15 attendants, 8 men and 7 women who took care of the hospital. Well, we had trained physicians here, and we had a doctor here, Dr. John Adolph Meyer, the first physician here in Bethlehem. We had a hospital here. That room was used, the music room was used to house sick women. Sick men were placed outside the building. You had 15 attendants, 8 men and 7 women who took care of the hospital. And you would sit in the Krankenstühle, and the doctor would prescribe something to make you feel better. He had 52 prescriptions from 104 different items that he had categorized here and knew from Europe. And so you get some medicine by Dr. Otto.
So the first question would be, what influence do you think the Moravian Brothers, obviously they had a very huge impact on Christian culture and faith and missionary work in the past, but what do you think is their influence now? Do you think it still holds a very strong place in Christian culture today in America?
Like most churches, especially in this country anyway, there's dwindling church population and dwindling influence of Christianity in this country, and I'm sure in most countries and the rest of the modern and civilized and the industrial world. And so the Moravian influence has kind of dwindled, although they still have missions and still have meetings. Like I told you, a huge section in Africa, they have a lot of influence over there. And the Moravian church kind of evolved over the years. And initially under Zinzendorf, they were very forward thinking. They allowed women to have the same education as men. They allowed women to decide whether they're going to get married or not and who they could marry and if they didn't want to get married. They allowed women to take leadership roles. They respected the women's intellect and their leadership abilities. And here in Bethlehem, so as the church evolved, they became more and more conservative and kind of morphed into what you would call something very similar to a Lutheran church. Their order of service and the hymns that they sing now is pretty much like a Lutheran church. And where before they would be considered liberal and forward-thinking, now they're pretty much in the conservative mold of a traditional Protestant church here in the country. One of the things that made the Moravians unique was their focus on equality. Not only the equality of women and men, but the equality of everybody when it came to the Lord and your access to heaven and the respect you have for each other. They did a great job of preaching to people because people had short, very physical, very difficult lives. And their pitch to people was basically, you know, if you join our church and you accept our beliefs, when you pass on, you are going to be treated the same way in heaven as everybody else. So whether you're the poorest man in town, whether you're a slave, whether you're an African American or an Indian American, you're going to be buried the same way, you're going to be living the same way once you join the church, and when you die, the Lord is going to treat you the same way. So you could be in heaven and get the same reward as the king. And we're talking about eternity now. Yeah. So that's a great pitch to people. And when you die here in Bethlehem, in God's Acre Cemetery, you were buried by the choir system. So married men are buried with married men, married women buried with married women. And you, once you joined the church, it didn't make any difference what your previous nationality was. You're buried right next to somebody else, a European, and the next available spot in the cemetery, you're treated equally because you're, in the eyes of the Lord, you're equal in life and in death. Wow. So you have Moravians buried right next to Native Americans, right next to African Americans who were slaves in God's Acre Cemetery. Wow. The other thing about God's Acre Cemetery, which reflects the true value that they had for equality, is you go up there, all the tombstones are flat. No one is raised up above anybody else. There's no raised tombstones, no mausoleums. Everybody is treated the same way. It's all flat stones because we're all equal in the eyes of the Lord. So really, back in those days, at some point, that was a really great pitch to people who had really short, hard physical lives, that you could be someone who could really be treated and reviewed and respected as a equal, including women, allowing them to teach and allowing girls to take the same courses as men here, math, science, and physics. The rest of the colonial world, you got music, literature, needlework, embroidery. But here in Bethlehem, you could take the same courses as men. John Amos Comenius was the person they considered the founder of the modern education philosophy, where men and women and everybody could have the same education. Education was really critical to people so everybody got the same opportunity to take the same educational experience as everybody else. So.
And what's the mission today for town of Bethlehem?
What does it hope to inspire
Yeah,
people?
yeah.
Well, number one, because we're going to become a World Heritage Site,
Yeah.
we hope that we're going to draw a lot more people here to Bethlehem, because what you see here is very unique. It's a hidden gem of history, because the brethren were very, very quiet and very unassuming and very humble about the things that they achieved. They had the first pumped municipal water system here, the first continually used town clock in this country still being used, the first trombone choir here, the first and oldest continually performing musical ensemble, the oldest bookstore in the country here, a lot of firsts here in Bethlehem, and firsts here in Bethlehem in the country. So they don't make a big deal about it. And they did over the years. They're very, very humble. If you look at the home of the president of Moravian University here, it's a very small, humble house. If you go into the churches, I showed you the old chapel, go to Central Moravian Church, very plain, very calm, very unassuming, no statues, no colorful paintings, no colorful drapes. It's a very quiet, humble worship center. So we hope to bring a lot of people here to see what these brethren were able to do here and the great things they did here in Bethlehem that most of the world doesn't even know about. So.
Yeah.
And I think the last question is, do you think that the Moravian Brothers kind of introduced that American foundation of equality and righteousness, and that they're a significant reason in the development of American values as we know them today?
Well, they were not the only ones. So when they got over here, most of the colonies initially had kind of like a state religion, whether it be Church of England or Southern Baptist or something like that. So most of the colonies had where the majority of the people were of one religious philosophy, but not in Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania was known as like the wild, wild west of religion. There were so many different religious philosophies over here, so many different Protestant groups and Catholic groups, that it was very, very free-for-all of religion. So there's a lot of groups over here that shared similar religious philosophies to the brethren, including the Quakers, which controlled a lot of Pennsylvania because they were very wealthy. They were one of the first ones here. They established a lot of governmental control and everything. So the brethren and the Quakers were colleagues. They knew each other. So they adopted and shared a lot of religious philosophies. And although there's some differences, they are very important and influential too in Pennsylvania, at least anyway, and probably in the United States, especially the early United States, because Philadelphia was the colonial capital. Philadelphia was where the Quakers were, and they had a lot of interaction with a lot of the founding fathers, and a lot of the things that you see in the Constitution of the United States, the Declaration of Independence, and the way things are organized, especially in the state of Pennsylvania, and probably nationally as well, was influenced by the Quakers and their impact on our founding fathers. And so the brethren shared that. We had a lot of visitors coming to Pennsylvania and to Bethlehem during the colonial time. Like I told you, 17 signers to the Declaration of Independence, including 2 presidents. So when they get here, they see what's going on here. John Adams, the guy who became our second president, when he visited Bethlehem twice in 1777, he wrote to his wife Abigail, said, "Bethlehem is an unusual and remarkable town." So he was really impressed by what the brethren were doing here. And I'm sure George Washington was also when he visited Bethlehem in 1777, and a little bit later, 1782. His wife was here in 1779. So everybody here saw what's going on here. We're very impressed by the fact that these people had created this community in the middle of the wilderness. Because you travel from Philadelphia to New York in the 1740s, it's just woods and maybe some rude farmland. In the middle of that is these large stone buildings that they built here. And you come over the hill of the Lehigh Valley, you look down there and say, "What is that?" And people were really kind of shocked when they got here to see what the brethren had done here compared to what was happening on in the 1740s and the rest of colonial America here. So, and in fact, also they had such a great relationship with Native Americans here in Bethlehem that a lot of other people didn't have the same respect from the Native Americans as the brethren did. So,
thank you so much.
You're welcome.